In today's video, we're checking out the Blackstar Club 40 Mark III Amplifier Combo. This is loaded with a 12-inch speaker. We get a dedicated clean and overdrive channel, and it's one of the most versatile combos I've had in the studio in a very long time. Let's get into it. Here's the amp up close. Let's take a look at the front panel. So starting left to right, we have our guitar input over here. We have a dedicated clean volume control. We get a voice switch, so this will either be toggled with the LED light on or off. With the light off, we're getting a round, high headroom clean channel. With the LED light on, we get a little bit more crunch in the signal. We get a 2-band EQ for the clean channel. We can then go over to here and select our overdrive channel, which turns on this section of the amp. So we get a gain and a dedicated volume control. We get a 3-band EQ. We also get the ISF switch. Now, this ISF switch allows you to get sort of like a UK sound with it all the way to the left, so more reminiscent of, say, like a Vox, or more reminiscent of like a Fender or a Boogie amp, so that American voicing over here. The great thing is, though, depending on your guitar and ear, you can set this wherever you like, and we'll take a look at that in the video. Much like the clean channel over here, we get a voice control. With the LED light on, it sounds gnarly, and I love it. And that's what you heard in the intro track for that little guitar solo. We'll take a look more at this in just a moment. Over here we get our dedicated reverb as well, so this is awesome. We get our master output volume. There's also a built-in power attenuation switch on the front, so we can go from the full 40 watts down to 4 watts if you want to just practice at home. Here's the back panel. As you can see over here, there's options for 2 different foot switches. So if you want to use a 5-way, you can buy that separately. And in the box, we do get a 2-way toggle switch. So that is in the box, at least with this particular amp. There's also a USB port over here if you want to use this as a dedicated audio interface, which is fantastic. We get a dedicated effects loop as well. So this amp really has everything with a different level output adjustment you can make over on this side, thanks to this little push button. Now we get a reverb button as well, dark and light. This just changes the tonality of the reverb. It's a great sounding reverb, I have no complaints with it. But one of the standouts for me is this cab rig output. This uses impulse responses to give us 3 different IRs. We can then record directly out of the amplifier to an audio interface or go into a PA system, whatever the case may be, thanks to this XLR out. Now the great news is you can also have the amp on standby and record or use that XLR out and use it separately with the amp speaker disabled. I love this. I think it's a really great touch. In the back of this amplifier is the legendary Celestion 7080, and I say that kind of jokingly because 7080s, they're a real hit and miss speaker when it comes to different amps. But in this, I think it's a bit of a hit. I don't think you'll need to go ahead and replace it unless you're looking for maybe a slightly more mid-heavy sound, especially on that lead channel, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Given this amplifier has so many features, you might think it's a digital modeling amp, but it's not. It's a full-blown tube amp. We get 2 EL34s and 2 ECC83 tubes built into this. And I gotta tell you, man, not only does this look cool, but it feels like a tube amp when I lift it. It's quite heavy. Actually, it's not that bad, but it is heavier than I was expecting. And I'll put the weight on screen. So yeah, this is a full-blown amp designed for live plays or studio musicians. It will pretty much cover everything. I've had so many requests over the last few years to start reviewing Blackstar amplifiers, and Sky Music finally have them in, so I'm able to borrow them. Just to let you know, this video is not sponsored. I don't get to keep the amp, no money's changed hands, and all thoughts about this are my own, and I'll give you my thoughts about it at the end. I'll timestamp this video as well because there'll be lots of different sections. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, leave a thumbs up. Let's get into it. All right, let's kick it off in today's video. We're gonna start with my Stratocaster, going into the clean channel of this amplifier, and I'm gonna start with the voice switch currently off, which gives us the biggest roundest clean tone, very reminiscent of that of a Fender amp. And I'm on 40 watts as well. So this is the full 40 watts with the reverb at 12 o'clock on the light reverb mode. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But let's give this a shot, starting on bridge and middle pickups combined. Here we go. Beautiful. Over to neck. So that retains all of the clarity. Now when I switch it over to the voice switch on, so the LED is on, have a listen to the difference. So you're essentially getting an almost Vox-like chime with this LED on. And it just breaks up a little bit. It sounds really nice to my ear. Let us know what you think. Let's try some humbuckers now on that clean channel just for some basic chord stuff. And I've just turned the bass down and the treble up slightly for this particular guitar. It's a nice full range sound. Here we go. Beautiful. Let's try the voice switch. You get a bigger sense of what this voice switch does, especially with humbuckers, because it's pushing the amp over the edge of breakup a little bit easier. This is with my volume control down. That's great, it cleans up nice, or I can turn it back up. That's the clean channel, pretty cool. Over to the overdrive channel on the amplifier now, which really gives us a whole lot of gain and lots of different ways to shape your tone. So I've got a 3-band EQ here. The IFS is all the way to the right, giving us that US style sound. There's a 2-way voice switch as well, which is currently off. The reverb's at about 9 o'clock. Let's have a listen to this. It's got a very steely sound. I might just back the treble off just a hair here. Let's try this. It's got a lot of drive, man. That's crazy. Let's try the voice switch. It's now on. And back off just for some of that lead sort of stuff. You know, for that lead sort of solo stuff, I prefer it on. Just gives it a little bit more sort of voiciness in the top end. Over to neck pickup. Volume down. The great news is it still cleans up just by using your volume control on your guitar. Over to my PRS SE Custom 24, we'll take a look at the voice switch with some humbuckers, and then we'll go over to the ISF dial. This is exactly the same settings that you just heard before on my Strat. This amp really comes alive with humbuckers. I didn't mind the sound of the Strat, I thought it sounded pretty good, but on the drive channel, humbuckers really fills it out a little bit more. Let's try this voice switch off now. Same thing. Yeah, with humbuckers it gets a little on the dark sounding side, so voice switch on to my ear sounds better on this channel. I just put new strings on this guitar, so I'm going to tune up. Let's take a look at the ISF switch, and I should also point out one of the most impressive things is how much gain this channel actually has. I haven't touched the gain control, it's at 9 o'clock, so there's plenty there. We're going to start with the ISF all the way to the right. I'll put it all the way to the left and then in the middle, and then you can get a good sense of how it sounds. Here we go. Yeah, so I mentioned before that this channel didn't seem as bright in certain settings, and what I found was just by turning the ISF to the left, it brings all of that back, so you get that sort of Vox, sort of British voiced tone on with this to the left. The great news is, depending on your guitar, you can set it wherever you like. I think right in the middle or at about 9 o'clock actually sounded pretty great. It favored the guitar more than having it just hard pan to the right. So experiment around with this control, you should be able to get some really great sounds. Up next, we're going to take a look at the gain control, and I've just switched the amp over to 4-watt mode. So let's give this a shot. The gain is most of the way down. 4-watt mode on this amp is brutally loud, depending on where you have the master volume, of course, and I've got the master volume now at 2 o'clock. Let's have a listen to this. Yeah. Whew. Gets noisy when you crank the gain up that far, and that's just a combination of my guitar and electronics here in the room. But basically this amp has so much gain on that overdrive channel, it's crazy. So I think it's more suited for people playing anything from like a classic rock style of music all the way through to the heavier styles. If you're a blues player, I don't know if you'd be using this channel a lot. It does have an inherent sort of scoop sound to it, at least to my ear. So that could mean that sometimes that might not sit well if you want to, do a solo. It might not actually cut through the mix. It kind of sits in the mix a little bit better is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's a very cool amp when it comes to its versatility and tones. One of the things I wanted to test though was the recording out option on the back. So let's give it a go. On the back of the amplifier, there's an XLR out which allows you to record silently with the standby switch on directly into an audio interface just via an XLR cable or a microphone cable. And there's 3 different types of tones you can get, or 3 different cab sims. I'm going to run you through each of those right now, starting on position number 1, which is with the toggle switch down. I'll play the same thing a few times so you get a good sense of the difference of the tone. Here we go. Now, I think if you're just getting started recording, that will make your life a whole lot easier. It'll also work great if you're playing live. You can just run a line directly out of the back and get a produced sounding guitar track, which is fantastic. So even if the engineer sucks who's doing the stage mix, you'll have a great send going directly into the feed. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm gonna give you my final thoughts on the Blackstar HT Venue Series Club 40 Mark III. So in terms of versatility, man, this amp's got it all. That XLR out recording directly into my computer sounds awesome. You get 3 different IRs to choose from. It just makes getting really usable recording simple thanks to your audio interface. You can just plug it in and you're good to go. So that's awesome. Or of course, if you're playing live, you can get a great sound going out into the PA system. So in terms of flexibility and versatility, this amp's right up there with some of the best. I love the fact the clean channel is as musical as it is. You can get that big round sort of Fender clean tone that I really like. And thanks to the voicing switch, you can get that Vox style tone as well on the clean channel, which is what I really like. Now, when it comes to the drive channel, this is clearly aimed at more modern players who really like to rock or shred, right? Not this old guy right here. So in terms of its tone, you can get so much out of this. It works great for lower gain stuff as well to some extent, but it really has more of that modern sound. It's got a lot of low end, a lot of high end, and a really scooped mid-range. So that may or may not be for you. I've just found in my playing experience over the last 20 years or so out live that amps that have a really scooped mid-range, they don't usually cut the mix too well. And that's been my experience with Blackstar amplifiers. Anytime I've heard them live, at least in the combo form, it could just be the mix, but generally speaking, I've heard them and I've gone, that's not really cutting the mix. It's all lows and highs. And I kind of felt that way about this drive channel. Now that's not to say you can't make it work if you use a mid-range boost or whatever the case may be to give you that frequency back, but it does just inherently have a little bit more of a scoop sound on that drive channel. Having a power attenuation switch on the front of the amp is genius. I love this, much like the Boogies I recently reviewed. Being able to switch the amp down, especially for home use like this, is killer. I really like this amplifier. You know, it's aimed at someone who probably isn't a blues guy like me, so if you like the tones of this, let us know in the comment section. If you want me to review more of these, I'd be happy to do so. And thanks to Sky Music for the loan of it. If you want to check it out, I'll link it below. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.